Awesome. Let's get started. So, good evening, good morning for some of us, good afternoon, good whatever time of the day you're joining us from. I want to say karibuni sana. Thank you so much for joining us. As you know, this is Papa Bear. We're having a special edition of our regular weekly segment, which we call Straight Talk, which we usually have on Friday evenings, by the way, but we're having a special segment today because this is a very important topic and we need to address it now, which is why we're doing this a bit early today, this week rather. So thank you. Welcome all of you to Straight Talk with Papa Bear. We're here where we have conversations, pertinent issues that we discuss regarding matters that affect fatherhood, matters that affect parenting. And today we have a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about the gender issue and the gender divide. You know, the recent past has seen a lot of dynamics happening in the media space. We've seen a lot of reported cases of gender-based violence. And, it's not to say that this is starting now. I mean, GBV has been happening for years, for centuries, but we're seeing a lot of reports coming out now. And some of the issues are very shocking, very disturbing. We're seeing the media being pulled in a very strong way. And there's a lot of discussion going on around this. We've seen a number of young women's lives being cut short because of, violent altercations with men. We've seen all this debate about, women and how, women then come into relationships with certain ideas or perspectives on how the relationship should unfold, and men as well. And we see a lot of conflict happening because of mismatched expectations and ideas around the gender role, around relationships. So we want to talk about that today and, really take this from largely a parenting perspective. As you know, Papa Bear is all about fatherhood. And, we're saying that men, at least in my view, are, the missing link, those strong, involved, engaged, authoritative men who are willing to stand up and take responsibility. That's the missing link. I think there's not enough of those in society. And I think as men, as dads, it's our responsibility to, first of all, be those guys and also to raise our sons to be those guys. And so that's what this conversation is going to be about. We're going to try and talk through some of these relational dynamics as relates to how people interact with one another, male, female, and how that plays into the whole GBV dynamic and how it's happening today. And today, to take us through this, to help me talk through this, I have a very good, special friend of mine, an awesome guy, a great guy, a dad himself, a media personality, a celeb. I should be taking, I should be getting your autograph, Mike. But I'm really privileged and happy to have my good friend Mike with us. So I'll give you a second to introduce yourself, Mike.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mongera. I mean, I'm so happy to be here. And, it just warms my heart that, we've got so many men who are now, beginning to have this conversation in a very thoughtful way, in a way that's not, sidetracked by emotions and, just anger. And we've seen a lot of that on social media right now. People are angry at each other. People are lashing out. People are saying very hurtful and mean things, especially towards women. But I'm happy that there are, men being led by the likes of yourself who are bold enough to have these conversations and to think about them a bit deeper, not just surface level reactions towards what is happening, but saying, why is it we're like this? Why are we angry at each other? What are some of the things that are causing this situation that is there right now? And what roles do we play in contributing to this current situation? So, thank you for having me here. I'm always happy to have these conversations with you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, bro. And I'm really privileged. Thanks for being here and for being part of this conversation. I know that a lot of your brand, your personal brand on social media and other places is built around the issue of men. And I know you have a segment that you call Keeping It 100.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. I mean, you have some really hard conversations and you address really sticky topics. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we can start there. What motivates you to want to address these issues? I know a lot of your conversations are around some of the bad or the misplaced perspectives that some men have regarding females and how we interact with women. So I don't know, where is this coming from?
Yeah, I think for me, growing up, I've always been somebody who really struggled with issues of inequality and issues of oppression. And I firmly believe that each one of us was put on this earth to thrive. And if you are put on this earth to thrive, then you must have the kind of environment and situation that allows you to explore your potential to the fullest and not be limited by any doctrine or any culture and tradition, or limited by a partner or somebody else. And what I've seen along the way is that we have got a lot of structures and systemic, and a lot of systems that limit people's ability to thrive as human beings. And so those are the things I try to interrogate and ask, why is it that we believe the things we do? And how come we don't see that some of the things that we believe actually limit our experience as human beings?
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I think we got lost. That's me. I think my connection got a bit shaky there for a minute. Sorry about that.
Okay. No. So I was saying that growing up, I've always struggled with the issues of inequality, and I've always struggled with systems that oppress people. And I've always had these conversations, even just with myself, asking, why is it we believe the things that we believe? And I firmly think that we are all put here as human beings to enjoy the full experience of being human and to thrive. And some of these things that we believe in and some of these systems that we follow limit our ability to thrive as human beings. And why aren't we asking ourselves these hard questions about why is it we believe these things that we've been told? Why is it we just follow them without questioning? And we know very well that they limit some aspect of our full humanity. So those are the kind of conversations that I try to encourage people to have. They're very uncomfortable because not many people think about them that way. When you've been raised to believe a certain system or a certain way of life, it's very difficult to question it, especially if you're benefiting from it.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who are usually quick to start questioning it are those who feel oppressed by whatever systems there are and whatever cultural institutions that there are. So I like the fact that people are willing to have these conversations and look and say, oh yeah, I never thought about it that way. And just to begin to sort of free people's minds.
Yeah, I mean that's important, and it's not many people who can accommodate that. The process of unlearning institutionalized ways of thinking is it's an uncomfortable one, and it's a long journey. You're talking about behavior change. You're talking about a paradigm shift, which is not something that happens very easily or very quickly. And I know one of the things that has been stuck in people's minds is around relationships. And that's really what I want to talk about today. When we talk about relationships between men and women, there's a certain way that society expects us to look at that men are supposed to be in the relationship for a particular thing. There's this thing they say, there's a saying that we use for those of us who are not Kenyan. There's a saying that we have in Kenya. It's a slang saying, but we say kutuma fair. And what that basically means is when a man wants to interact with a woman, then he sends her money. Or he has some sort of financial output for which he expects a return, right? And that word kutuma fare is really means directly, the direct translation is really for sending bus fare or sending some money. But broadly speaking, it refers to the expectation that a man would have when dealing with a woman. My financial outlay would then result in some sort of return, and there's an expectation that would happen, right? And from my perspective, I don't know. I think it's not it's not wise. I mean, if you're going to hang out with a woman or with a chick, if you're katiaing somebody or trying to get into a relationship with somebody, whatever outlay you put out there is really your choice. It's you to say, I want to give this person this. I want to support. I want to pay for whatever it is that I'm paying for. I shouldn't have an unimplied expectation of a return unless I make it clear that there's some sort of transaction here. I don't know what do you think about that, Mike? This kutuma fare culture.
Yeah, I think because of popular culture, but also because of traditional culture, relationships are very sort of transactional. Even if you begin from like the way let's talk about the institution of marriage and the ceremonies that surround it. Already there are certain transactions which are happening there where, like in Kikuyu, they say, kogora motumia, I've gone, kogorana, I've gone to pay for somebody, to buy somebody. Even the language itself, sort of alludes to, I'm going to buy somebody, I'm going to purchase somebody. And that it's a very uncomfortable thing to think about, because then the woman's value is placed on how much you can pay. And so you get to see that the worth of the woman is being discussed in terms of monetary terms and material things. And so even from that perspective, we already begin to see our relationships are sort of transactional that way. But then now when you come to this day and age where now that is also reinforced by popular culture, we start seeing those situations where there are certain expectations that men always must come with finances. Men must always come with money. Men must always come ready to spend and to splurge and to spoil and that sort of thing. And consequently, for men, there's the feeling that if I spend this money, if I spend these resources, then I must get something in return. And that's where now the complication comes in, because we've completely removed the idea that I can just have coffee with you just for the sake of having coffee. And I just want to spend time with you. There doesn't necessarily have to be anything beyond that. But we've commercialized relationships so much, and we've brought in the transactional aspects of relationships so much that if somebody spends money, they automatically almost expect that there has to be something else in return. And that's complicating. And that's complicating these conversations, because there's a school of thought that people are trying to say that just because you spend money doesn't mean that there has to be anything other than my company that you get in return, or anything other than a good conversation, or anything other than you just spent time and it was nice, So those are things complicating these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. It's I had never really thought about that. Just the historical cultural element around the financial transaction within a relationship. I sense also that on the flip side, we have a generation, maybe not a generation, but we have certain people, women who believe that their bodies are for sale, and essentially they then come into the transaction with the reverse perspective, that I'm going to give you what I have, and in return you're going to pay me. And maybe pay is not a word. Maybe it's more like you're going to facilitate or make my life a little bit more comfortable as a result. I think on the flip side, then, we have men coming into this thing with a transactional mindset, and we have women to some degree coming into it as well with understanding that, my body is pretty much an asset that I'm going to use to facilitate a certain lifestyle.
I think popular culture has played a big role in the way that we think about relationships nowadays. If you listen to even the music that is out there, you've got very strong personalities who have framed what it means to be a man in this day and age, and you've got very strong personalities who have framed what it means to be a woman in this day and age. So the male artists are out there singing songs and talking about, the guy with the most women, the guy with the most bling, the guy with the best cars, the guy with the flashiest person, the guy, who's able to do one to ABCD. That's the man. That's the guy. That's the one everybody wants to be like, because that's what makes you popular, So if you don't have these things, then you're not really a man. And flip side, if you hear what some of the strong female artists are singing, and they're talking about a woman's ability to be able to, raise her voice and, go out and get what she wants. And if she's not getting it from this guy, she can get it from this other guy, and she can have 5 guys, and she can have, she can get it any way that she has to get it, secure the bag. We're talking about all these things, just secure the bag any way that you have to, and so while the song is dope, the song is really nice, we're singing it and we're talking about it, but if you really think about it, when you start living that kind of lifestyle, what does it really mean to secure the bag any way that you have to have 3, 4, 5 guys who are paying for 1, 2, 3 things? I mean, it sounds, in the song it might sound good, but when you come down to reality to do it, it's a very complicated thing to manage, because you're trying to manage 4 or 5 people at the same time. You're trying to manage 4 or 5 people's different expectations of what you should bring to the table. You have to give yourself to 4 or 5 people in probably different ways. You might be in situations that are dangerous because you're trying to manage 4 or 5 different. So, I mean, the practicality of it is very, very complicated. But that's what we're seeing young people now looking at as relationships. And it's building so much resentment, because you'll have men saying, you know what, I honestly have come out thinking that, I'm going to help you out with some finances. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 things for you. And then I find out you've got 4 or 5 other guys who are doing the same thing for you, you know. And then suddenly now here is this guy thinking, okay, what's going on here now? And so that's what I'm picking up from all these conversations that are going on, out there. And I think what we need to do is ask ourselves, is there anything more that men bring to the table other than money? And is there anything more women bring to the table other than the expectations that men will just want to have sex with them? So if you remove those 2, what are we left with? And what else can we bring to the table? Because I feel that is where people's minds are stuck. But we have to ask ourselves, what more do we bring to the table other than just the expectation of finances and the expectations of sex?
Okay. And those expectations make for, basically very toxic relationships and relationship environments as well. And so you have young guys who, young 20 something year old guys who are like, man, Yanni, I have no chance with anyone because I don't have the money. And then you have on the flip side other people, even women who are older, and they feel like because I might not be where I was sexually or physically when I was in my 20s, then I have 0 chance in this life because there's always some younger woman who's hotter than me. And so therefore, there's no one who's ever going to look at me. And it makes for a very toxic relational environment. I like what you're saying, that if you take all of that away, then what's left? And then my question then is, let's look at this practically. Let's look at, you're a dad, right? You've got a son who I haven't yet had a chance to meet yet. But what are we teaching our kids? What should we be teaching our sons? I have a son too. He's probably about the same age as yours. And I'm asking myself, what should I be teaching my son now? Because you see, there's the reality, the ideal that you want him to be an upstanding guy, to not be transactional in his relationships and all that stuff. But the reality is, he's going to go out there and he's going to meet chicks who don't think like him, right? I have daughters, and I can tell you, I'm worried about that, because what's going to happen when they go out there?
Exactly. Every time you have this comment, I'm like, Mongera has daughters. This guy is heavily invested in making sure that his son doesn't, comes out a certain way, and his daughters also come out a certain way. So and that's why I say parenting is a full-time job, because now this is where the actual parenting comes in. It's not just about paying school fees and paying for electricity and things. Absolutely.
This is where the rubber meets the road. And so for me, that's a concern. I mean, I know what the ideal is, but I'm also aware of the reality that, my son, when he gets to his 20s, he's going to interact with Chiles who are going to be like, you know what, you're too young for me. You ain't got no chooms, man. She's going to want to go for somebody much, much older, right? My daughters, they'll be hanging out with people who will think the way to get ahead in life, secure the bag, right? In any way that you can. Go out there, use whatever you have, whatever your mama gave you, and use it to make your way in life. So what do we teach? How do we inculcate in our kids the right mentality, so that they're able to strip away the fluff. What really matters. What do you think?
So I proposed the other day. I posted about this, and I proposed a function that I'm calling Raka. Raka is RHACAR.
Abu, say that again. Raka. I want to type this into the thing. R.
Yeah. RHACAR. Raka.
Okay.
And so Raka stands for, the R is for responsibility. And the responsibility is about always showing up and being able to handle what you're able to handle and asking for help where necessary. Okay. You see, there's an aspect of being responsible that we all have to address. When people get into relationships, and you'll see, like, for example, there are guys who will be able to come have a relationship with a chick, get her pregnant and run away. Leaving her with the baby. And then you'll hear the boy child has been left behind. But you're the one who has left your boy child behind.
Pretty much.
So pretty much, right? So, and there's also an element of responsibility for women to be sure that, they are, of course, just ensuring that some of the decisions they make are responsible decisions about how it is they want to be in relationships. And so, if you're talking about securing the bag, but you're securing the bag at a certain cost, which is going to be very, it's going to be very damaging to you, then you're not being responsible. So there's an aspect of being responsible. So that's the R in Raka. And then there's H, which is honesty.
Okay.
And the honesty is about just being real about your situation. If you meet somebody and you have no money, you just be honest about it and say that, you know what, okay, it's like this. May I like you, and I think I want to date you, but I'm being honest. This is what I bring to the table. I'm not going to try and make things up and say, I'm going to buy you all these things. I'm not going to go to Tala to borrow money to try and impress you. I'm not going to get into debt. I'm not going to cheat you. I'm in love with you just so that I can sleep with you. There's an aspect of honesty, and I'm not going to tell you I love you just so that I can get money from you. So let's be honest. Like, this is where I'm at in my life, and this is what I bring to the table right now. And then there's A. The A in Raka, the first A is for adaptability. I think it's important for us to understand that the world is changing. The roles of provider, protector, manager of resources that men were playing in the traditional days is not necessarily the roles we are playing now, because you'll find men in relationships who have no jobs, they've got no income, they've got no way of putting food on the table. If you can't do that, then of course you cannot be provider, you can't be protector, you can't be manager of resources, and you can't make decisions around how resources are being used, because the power has shifted from you to your partner. And so it's about, and that doesn't make you any less of a man just because somebody else is performing those roles. And that's the adaptability that I'm talking about, for us to be able to say, you know what, even though I'm not performing these roles now, that doesn't make me any less of a man. And there are other things that I can do in this relationship or in this situation that I'm in that still, show me as a responsible human being, So that adaptability is important. And then the C in Raka is for collaboration. We see relationships as competitions and not partnerships. And that's why if there's somebody who is earning more than the other, there's already someone feeling some type of way that, what is this one trying to show me at? Because you earn more than me, because you earn 6 figures, because nini, sasa unakaliwa, we don't, I'll show you who's the man in this relationship, those sorts of things. Or consequently, if a man doesn't have money, men feel that immediately their partner will start kaliaing them, So we need to change this perception and say, okay, let's look at relationships as partnerships, and partnerships are collaborative. Where I'm saying, yo, babe, look, me right now, I don't have cash, you know, and I'm trying to look for a job and I'm trying to put food on the table. But if I can't do that, I'm cool with you doing it while I handle something else. And we both have to be okay with that and say that, you know what, you're my partner and I've got you the same way I expect that you've got my back, you know. So we need to look at this, you know, as partnerships and not competitions. And then the other A in Raka is for accountability, you know, the willingness to put ourselves, with the willingness to be put to task about our actions, you know. Your partner has to be able to ask you hard questions about certain things, and you know, you have to be willing to be in that, you know, frame of mind, in that space where you're accountable for your actions. And then the last R is for being respectful. You know, if we come into this partnerships, and at the back of our minds and at the front of our minds, we are like, we want to be respectful, we want to treat each other with dignity and decency, while respecting our diversity in the way we think, our diversity in the things that we do, our diversity in our beliefs, our diversity in the way we were brought up. If we come into relationships with that element of respect that way, I think we'll be able to first treat each other as human beings and appreciate each other more. So that's Raka.
Okay. Awesome, man. That's wow, that's one for the books. So Raka: responsibility, honesty, adaptability, collaboration, accountability, and respectfulness.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, teacher Mike. Hey, kumbe you kuna curriculum.
No, I just felt that we were going around this conversation, you know, everybody is saying a lot of things. Why don't I just suggest something and see if you know, if it'll fly with people. You know, people do very well with acronyms, and they're easier to remember.
3 steps, the 3 C's of succeeding in relationships.
Exactly. We're all products of 844. So and we're all used to cramming and doing things. So I was like, why don't I just create something as an acronym people can remember? Even if you only remember 2 or 3 things in the acronym, at least you'll remember something.
Yeah. No, it's something. But I was remembering, I was playing with my kids. I was asking them which are the colors in the rainbow, and I was telling them there was like an acronym we used to have. It was actually a sentence. I don't know if you remember. It was Richard of York gave birth in vain.
Yes,
and I'm like, man, I was taught that thing like 30 years ago, man, and it still sticks until today.
And you still remember, like even the planets, when you're talking about my very educated mother just made 9 pancakes or something like that. Yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah, those are the things, man. Those are the things. No, but thanks. That's helpful. Yeah. So you're saying? Sorry.
No, yeah. So I was saying, yeah. Why don't we come up with something that can, you know, be a sort of code people can fall back on and say, can I tick these letters in this acronym and say I'm doing all these things? And if I do all these things, do I have the reasonable expectation that you know, relationships might be a bit healthier?
Yeah. And I think I like that, the code, the idea of having like a code, something to fall back on. I think one of the things that, you know, we as parents need to do is also, you know, we need to model these things. You know, we need to model the Raka model and be that kind of person to our partners. You know, because our kids see these things, they observe, they learn whether we're teaching them or not. Right? You know, good behavior, even convictions are taught. You know, they're not taught. You can't teach people how to do certain things. You kind of have to live it yourself, and then your teachings then have meaning. So I think also, you know, it's important for us as adults, as the adults in the relationship, so to speak, as we interact with our children, as we have projections for them, for their future, and how we want them to behave, and how we want them to interact with other people when they get to that age. We also have to model it, right? You know, so the way you treat your partner in the relationship is very telling. I mean, it's one thing for you to be shouting at the screen and saying, you know, you're anti-misogyny and all that stuff, and yet in the house you're the one who's mistreating your wife, and your kids are watching that. Right? It's one thing for you to say, you know, don't be transactional in relationships, but in your relationship with your husband, your relationship is very transactional, right? It's like you're always almost charging him for stuff. So kids see these things, and the more they watch, the more they observe, That's how they become that. We need to model the right kind of behavior as adults, so that our kids see these things and they learn how to do these things in the right way.
I absolutely agree,
Go on, go
Monga.
on.
I absolutely agree, and that's why I decided, you know what, let me try and come up with this model and see, you know, if it's something that I can begin to advance as a guideline, sort of, to help. You know, I always say that, to me, something like the Bible, and all these religious texts that we have were essentially blueprints to guide us on how to be better human beings. The Bible has, I don't know how many books in it, so you may not have read all of them. So I decided, let me just come up with something very simple to digest that is easier. But back to what you're talking about, modeling, I think, and for fathers especially, it's really important for us to be able to model masculinity for our boys, but also for, if you have girls, for girls to be able to have an idea of what, you know, healthy masculinity looks like by watching their fathers. You know, but then when they grow up, that will always be the frame of reference that they have, that, you know what, you know, I saw my dad doing this, or my dad never did this and never said this and never treated anybody around him this way. So I don't expect you to treat me different. You know, so if we begin modeling those sorts of things right from the home, then we'll begin to see a trickle-down effect that, you know, at the end of the day, is going to be what we see mirrored in society.
Okay. How do you deal with the issue of single parents, either single moms, single dads? I think increasingly single moms, because you know, I was reading some stats the other day. We did some research actually as Papa Bear sometime last year, and we got some numbers which were actually quite shocking. According to the World Bank, as high as 36% of families in Kenya are female-led. And by female-led means there's no adult male in the home. And many of those are for unforeseen reasons, not divorce, but death. So we have a lot of widows and that kind of thing. But a large percentage of those are just basically guys who walked away. So we have a large number of families that are growing up without the male presence. And I think to a lesser degree, it's happening for the men as well, that there are a lot of men who are raising children on their own. And so, you know, the kids are growing up with only one side of the picture. They only see how mom does it, or how dad does it. And so what can we do for families like those? How do we get these kids to see the other side of the equation? You know, because these kids, again, they're growing up and they're getting into society, right? They're getting into relationships. They're getting into their 20s, into their 30s. Some of them are even some of us at our age, who, you know, you've grown up, you're in your 30s, 40s, you've got kids of your own, but you've grown up with a single mom. So you've got no idea what it means to be a dad, right? And all of this is, in a way, fueling all these gender dynamics. Because if I don't know what it was like to have a man in my house growing up, then, you know, I don't know. Relationships are being torn apart because guys aren't understanding. You know, a woman grew up with a single mom, so she knows that the woman is a strong, supportive person in the relationship. Guy grew up without a dad, so he doesn't know what a man is supposed to do. And these two people get married or they get into a relationship. So what happens? There's conflict right from the word go. So, you know, what can we do? How can we interact with a single parent dynamic and make sure that, you know, these kids get the both sides of the picture?
Well, so there's a couple of things. In the Raka model, the R is for responsibility. And so I think the responsibility stretches whether is applicable, whether you as a man are in that relationship with the mother of your children or not. So that then I think we need to get to a place in society where we're saying, okay, fine, you know, even if I'm not with you, me and you have issues. That's a fact. We can't be together, but we've got children together. Is it possible we can find a space where we put our issues aside, and I, as a father, even if I'm not with you, I still, you know, ensure that I have got time spending with my kids to be able to model this masculinity for them, to be able to just be that dominant, that present father figure or that present male figure there. That's one. Two, there are also, you know, various programs that are out there now for parenting. And I think Pastor Simon Bevy is doing very well with his Transform Nations. He's got very tailor-made projects for mothers of sons and fathers of daughters, and that's targeted to parents who are single parents. And so that might be something somebody might want to look at. So Transform Nations is doing very well with that. But I think one of the things that we have lost in society is the aspect of community parenting. Even you, where you live, Ongera, where you live, how many neighbors do you know?
2 or 3 maybe.
Out
of a whole estate of like 200 houses, I think I know like 2 or 3 people.
Exactly. So like in the estate where I live, we've been trying to push a community parenting model. And we got Pastor Bevy with Transform Nations to come and talk, take us through parenting, a certain parenting course for parents. Because what you realize is that exactly what you're saying, you might have kids who are in single parent households, and the parent is away working and the parent is away doing things, and you don't have anybody who's really monitoring what this child is doing or who they are playing with, or things like those. So what we decided to try and do in our estate is to say, let's go back to that. When we were growing up, we were raised by everyone's parents.
Yes.
You couldn't do something in the estate because Baba Nani with Baba Nani is coming, Mama Nani is coming. And
they had free reign, as in they find you doing something or misbehaving. Hey, it's open season, man.
Absolutely. And we've lost that. We've absolutely, completely lost that element of a child is raised by the village.
Right.
So we need to go back to that model and say, this Western model we have of it's just me, myself, and I come and I lock myself in my apartment and it's all about me. We need to completely think about going back to our roots and saying, how do we get back to this community parenting model where, if I know, for example, that there is a child who is in a house where there is a single parent, I as a man can step in and be a male role model that child can look up. I can be that, and it doesn't take too much. It's just me donating or contributing some of my time to that child. And it could be with activities we're doing in the estate, or when they come over to my house, I talk to them about certain things. So it's up to us, and I think men bear the biggest responsibility for that. So it's up to us as men to be able to bring back this sense of community. And everybody who's watching, one thing I just want to challenge all of us is to say, you know what, you've got kids and your kids play with other kids in the estate. Do you know the parents of the kids your children play with? And is your idea of parenting the same? Have you had these conversations with them? Let's not wait for somebody else to come and build a community for us, yet we live in that community. So let's be the ones to step out and say, hey, neighbor X, my name is so and so, your son plays with my son, or my daughter plays with your daughter, or my daughter plays with your son. Get to know them, build a relationship. We have to do these things, because if we don't build the sense of community, we are completely setting up our kids for failure.
Yeah. And I think, what you're saying is so true. I think what's happening in today's society, there's a lot of defensiveness when it comes to parenting. People feel like, you can't tell me what to do about my kids, or, my kids. So there's a lot of even competitions. Like we compete with one another to see whose kids behave better, whose kids look better. And so anytime somebody tries to tell you anything about your choice, it's not like how it was before. You feel threatened and you want to push back, instead of seeing it as a help and like somebody else who's helping you, a different perspective on this issue. Because we all want to see our kids survive, right? We want to see our kids succeed. So I think there's a level of defensiveness, there's a level of individualism, everybody's sort of locked in their home. Part of it is the whole tenant dynamic, and this is what I mean, that, if you're living in an estate, I've lived here for almost 9 years. But people come and go, right? So there's a sense in which you feel like you don't want to get too close to your neighbors, because then they're going to leave. But then what happens is you end up, going through life just as a small unit. But why don't you develop a different kind of community? It doesn't have to be your immediate neighbors, but there are other communities that you can be part of, right? You could be part of like a cell group, a church cell group, or some sort of hobby type of group, right? So you guys are bicycle enthusiasts or you're runners or whatever it is. And around that activity, you form a community where you also bring your families together, and then you have that whole village, approach. Our folks were able to do it because they literally lived in the same village, and nobody was going anywhere, right? No one was going to Hama, so they had the time and the space to nurture that community. So I think we can still do the same thing, but we need to think of other people as collaborators or people who help us in our parenting journey, and not get defensive or try and push back at what is very helpful. A lot of those have to do with values also. What kind of communities can I build around the values that I share, church or whatever it is. What were you going to say? Sorry.
No, absolutely. What you said is completely true, and I think the reason why people become defensive is because your value systems are not aligned, and you don't have a common understanding of how you want to parent in the place where you stay. And for me, where this thinking came from, there has to be a unity of purpose. There has to be, you guys have to think the same way about what it is you want to achieve. And I'll give you a very good example where you have a situation where people's value systems are completely aligned. If you took somebody from, I don't know, somebody living in a lower income neighborhood and took them to Kitusuru, when you get there, you'll begin to hear things like, we don't do that here. We don't do that here. What does that mean?
We don't do that here.
What does that mean? It means that community has a common understanding about behavior and action and things that you can do and cannot do. And it's very clear to everybody who is in that community. Atufanyangi hizo vitu hapa. So they built a sense of community with a certain value system for everybody who lives there. And that's the kind of understanding that we need to have as communities, as a nation of communities, and say, there's certain basic things that we must all subscribe to. If you want to subscribe to more, that's fine. But these 4 or 5 basic things are what we must all carry, all of us. And that's what forms our value system, And that's why for me, like Raka is very easy because it's just Raka. It's just 4 or 5.
Simple.
So you say
top of mind, man. Top of mind.
Top of mind. Like if we all just say these 4 or 5 things are what all of us want to live by, then if you want to add other things is okay. But at very minimum, these 4 or 5 things, then we begin to see a sort of common understanding around it. So that if I'm out in the streets and I see Mongera's kids, I'll be like, hey, even if I don't know you, I'll be like, whoa, wait. This thing, no. We don't do such things here. And Rwanda is very good at that. Rwanda have such a common understanding about their value system as a nation. They will tell you, no. This, you see, that's where we need to get to as a nation, where we are saying, no, we've got these 4 or 5 things all of us believe in. And irrespective of religion, irrespective of race, irrespective of nationality, irrespective of financial status, doesn't matter. These are the 4 or 5 things we all believe in.
It's like these are like our core values. This is the community. This is what we stand on.
Core value. This is what it means to Kenyan.
And I think some of those values, sometimes they're stated, sometimes they're implicit, and they can only be reinforced if there's a sense of community. That sense of community, that we are together. These are my people. This is my tribe. These are the people who I am with, and being deliberate about extending that sense of community into the family, so that it's not like me. I have my biker guys and we do our thing. But you have a sense of community even around that. So you kind of coalesce around this thing that you share together. For some people, it's the home or the estate where they live. For other people, it's an activity that they do together and they come together and their families sort of grow together. I'm part of a group where we do a Bible study called Zindua. And Zindua is basically a study about the future. It's about how do you launch into life, into your 60s, 50s and 60s. And so, we've come together where we are 5 couples. And we've sort of roped in our families in. So now we have a shared. So it's like a little community where we share values and we do all of that. So that's That's the thing. I think that's very powerful. That sense of community as we raise our kids. I think one of the other things that's critical for parents is the idea of being deliberate, right? That I know it's implied in the Raka model that you need to do these things in a very purposeful way. That parenting is to a large part a proactive activity, right? It's not something that yes, it kind of is thrust on you, and to some extent you kind of coast through it and you kind of wing it sort of. But a lot of the value that you add to a parenting relationship is proactive. You have to deliberately do some of these things. If you're going to change the way you behave, if you're going to stop drinking so that your kids themselves, you have to take a deliberate step, a deliberate action to be able to do that. So there's a sense of purposefulness and deliberateness in how we parent. And I think that's important. That's critical, because I had a conversation with some people just yesterday actually, and one of the things that came out is that a lot of men have an inferiority complex with regard to their parenting. So in a nutshell, they feel that they're not the right people to raise these kids, right? They're either not rich enough, or they have vices of their own, or they themselves have done certain things, or they feel they were not raised well. So there's a certain level of inferiority complex that kicks in where fatherhood is concerned. Almost imposter syndrome, where you're like, me, I'm not like my dad. My dad was a rock banai. He was a ninja. He was those guys of Yani who could do so many things, and he disciplined us, and he was chairman of what board, and he was the MD of what organization. Me, I'm not that. So you feel like you're an imposter by being the father of these kids. And it's an interesting dynamic, because I never thought about it. And people are now backing off, and a lot of this single parent dynamic is because of that guys feel I'm not the right person to do this job. And it takes away from all the effort, or even just the need or the desire to participate in this process, because it just feels it's not for me. And I found that interesting.
No, absolutely. And you'll always have a frame of reference when you're parenting, because then your frame of reference will be how you are parented, and so like even me, there are times there's sometimes I sit and I think, and I'm like, wow, am I able to give my family and my son the same kind of life my parents gave me? And I was talking about this with a friend of mine. We grew up. He was my next door neighbor in the estate where I grew up. And we're just laughing about it and saying, "What? You remember how we grew up? We had such a nice life,
Yeah. Are you there? Hi, Mike. Are you there? I think we've lost you for a second. Okay. I think we've lost him for a second there. Okay, we've lost you. I mean, you'll probably join in. But I mean, I'm pretty much talking to myself now. But that imposter syndrome is real. That you feel like you cannot do what your folks did. That your parents were on a certain level. They were way ahead of you. They were way above you, and what they were able to do for you is beyond you. For some people, it's the opposite, where they feel like they are much more. Oh, there you are. We lost you for a second there. Are you back? You're muted. We can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying good. You had a nice life. That's where you stopped.
Oh, that's where I stopped. Yeah. So so I was talking with my friend, and I was like, yeah, we had a relatively good life growing up, and so we're asking where we are right now, as parents ourselves, are we able to replicate the same kind of lifestyle that we had growing up as kids? And we can't, of course, because things have changed, and so, the environment has changed, and, things are different. But we're like, wow, can you imagine if we're able to give our kids the same exact, because I fall back on my childhood a lot when things are difficult for me, because it reminds me that there was a time life wasn't always bad, and that's why for me parenting is so critical and important, that you're giving your kids experiences and memories they will be able to fall back on later when life becomes so dark and so difficult, that they will be able to have a frame of reference and say, you know what, life can actually be better. And I remember a time when life was actually good. And so it sort of gives you a sense of purpose and hope that things won't always be bad.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also, the truth is, sometimes, like I talk to my dad every now and then, well, a little more than every now and then. Thankfully, he's still around and he's still alive. I thank God for that.
Amen.
And he tells me things now. I'm like, what? How did you guys pull through that? Growing up, we never saw these struggles. We never saw the kind of things that they had to do to keep the family going, keep the house, to keep the home afloat, right? And so it's shocking to me now that they had to make such huge sacrifices. He's telling me about how much was being paid and how much of that was going towards a mortgage. And I'm like, man, that was like 60% of your salary. You know what I mean? It was, how are we surviving, And you realize that as much as we had a certain lifestyle, our folks could afford a certain lifestyle for us, it was at great personal cost, right? And they had to go through a lot to get there. And that's the thing. We didn't know that at the time. And so there was a certain level of entitlement that we had, because you're like, me, I want shoes like for my friend, because, he has those shoes. So I want shoes like those. But I don't realize the kind of sacrifices my folks have put in to even put a roof on my head, over my head.
Absolutely.
I think that's another dynamic when it comes to the modern day parent, right? And I think it's all part of this whole gender thing, because we have to ask ourselves, how open are we with our kids? How honest are we with them? And we've come from a generation, our parents were very almost secretive with their stuff. They wouldn't tell us stuff. They believed that certain things you shouldn't know. And yes, I agree, there's some things you shouldn't know. But there's a level of transparency that creates the right kind of expectation in our kids and prepares them for the future. Because then they realize that these things just don't happen automatically, right? You don't just go, money doesn't come out of a hole in the wall, the way ATMs work. That money has been put there by hard work, sacrifice, determination, and everything. You need to show your children what it takes to keep that house afloat, and keep them in school, to keep them clothed. There's a certain level of transparency that I think a modern day parent, us guys, need to embrace, so that we depart from this secretive KGB kind of approach that our folks had, right? That everything is a secret, state secret. Some things are not that big a deal. You can actually just tell them, look, I'm struggling. I don't have chums this week or this month or last year or whatever.
Absolutely. And I think the reason why it was so KGB is because we didn't want our kids to go and talk to the neighbors' kids and then tell them, certain things that are happening in the house. Then your stories are being discussed everywhere in the estate. I think that's mainly what it was. But I think also parents didn't want to look human. I think there's this thing, we don't want to look human to our children. We don't want our kids to see that we struggle with certain things. We always want to be, that person who's near perfect. And that's very harmful, because our kids don't see us as human beings who are affected by the same things they will be affected with later. So if your kids are able to see that, dad is struggling with something and mom is struggling with something, and this is how they've overcome that struggle, I think that's a better lesson, and there's a lot of value in that, so that even when they're using it as a frame of reference later on in life, they'll be like, there's nothing wrong with struggling. There's nothing wrong with having problems. My parents also had problems, and this is how they overcame these problems. But right now, you'll have kids growing up struggling with things that they've never seen anybody else struggle with, and thinking that there's something wrong with them.
Yes, precisely. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, we're all human. Everybody has got issues that we've dealt with. I think that even extends to relationships. I think we need to be open with our kids regarding some of the relationships that we're in. I mean, and I'm talking about like professionally and otherwise. So that kids grow up with a realistic picture of the future. They don't grow up thinking that, I'm the boss. Because I'm a boy, everything is done for me. You have to realize that sometimes, I'm Kaliwad, or even I have people I need to report to. I have a boss who I need to report to. So I think the reality of life needs to be made apparent to our children from a very young age, so that they grow up knowing that certain things are there. And a lot of that has to do with the gender role, has to do with even the gender-based violence that we're seeing today. Because men coming into these relationships thinking, I'm the boss, and just because I'm the man, I get whatever I want. And you fail to recognize that even your own father, by the way, he had to katia your mom so that she can get his box, and there was a process. And so you show them the reality of relating with other people, right? You need to show your daughters that, by the way, just because you're pretty and your daddy's princess, doesn't mean that everybody's going to see you that way, right? There are people who are
Right.
going to look at you and want to take advantage of you.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
just giving them the reality of life so that they're prepared, they know how to deal with different situations. You prepare them in advance. I find that kids have a huge capacity to absorb and integrate or inculcate information. That, you know, we underestimate them. We think that they don't understand these things or they don't know what to do. But giving them clear direction, giving them clear examples, working with them, they're able to really accommodate a lot of information and even different perspectives. You know, so I think we really need to be a lot more transparent with our children so that we are able to show them the reality of life. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, that's how, and that's what parenting is. You know, that's exactly what parenting is. And but for that to happen, you have to be present as a parent, and you have to be very deliberate, like you were saying, that this is the lesson that I want my children to get out of this experience. You know, with my son, it's very, you know, to teach him the value of money. You know, so we like all the toys that he wants to buy. We're like, okay, fine. If you want to buy this certain toy, you have to save up for it. Saving up for it means you have to do certain things beyond the chores that you do in the house. And it's painful, it's tiring, but that's how life is. Nothing is just handed over to you. That's
exactly
life.
If it was up to me, I wouldn't work. I'd just let people give me money. That's
exactly
life.
So that's life. And then now when he has got his savings, usually we try and get him to buy something for the house, whether it's a bar of soap or whatever it is, you know.
I like that.
And so he feels a certain sense of responsibility that, hey, I've contributed to buying one packet of something, or, you know, something around the house, so that he begins to have a sense of responsibility. Yes, a sense of responsibility. But then there's also times when he asks, like, can I have KFC or can I have something? And we're like, so you buy it for us this time. and he very quickly, you know, says no. So we're beginning to teach him, you know, you must prioritize. With the money you have is not infinite. You have a finite amount of money, and if you don't prioritize how you use that money well, it's going to disappear, you know. And so you have to be very careful about what are the things you plan to spend your money on.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. I'll try that with my kids. I know they're here, they're watching. I'm going to try this with them. One of the things that we do, and we do it on a light note. It's kind of like a bit of a joke, but the principle applies. So what we do is, whenever you buy them anything like a bar of chocolate or even some ice cream, we charge them tax. So we say, like, 30% of that is mine. I'm going to eat 30% of your ice cream or whatever it is that I've bought you. And, you know, it's a joke, but then the principle applies that there's a facilitation fee for whatever that you get. Your income, there are two things you cannot avoid in life. One is death, the other one is taxes. So get used to it. Somebody somewhere is going to take a portion of whatever you've earned just because they exist. And that's just reality. That's just life. So it's on a light note, but it works for us. Okay, I think we've lost you again, Mike. You're frozen. So guys, I don't have any questions. I've seen a couple of comments in the comment box on Facebook. Keith, you're saying a few things about your community and how you were raised in a community, a parenting community, or rather a community where parents felt like their responsibility was to help raise the children. But the people who are raised in those communities tend to be opposed to it. Yeah, sorry, Mike, we lost you for a second there, but I'm going to the questions now on FB. What I'm seeing is a lot of comments, people saying it's a good discussion. Somebody called Keith is saying some of the guys who are raised by a community are opposed to the idea of community parenting, as an observation from his hood. I don't know whether that's scientific or not, but that's his observation. Andrew Charlie Ford is saying that parenting and life is tough. It's important to convey values and be available to support when children need guidance. But at the end of the day, it's their life and their choices as well. Sandra, yes, the video will be saved. Sandra, you're going to have it available after we're done. Who's this? Stephanie has a question here, or rather, it's more like a comment. Would you say that many relationships or breakups or the high divorce rate among the younger couples is because of financial misunderstandings? And how would we encourage positive relationship building? Yeah, Stephanie, you asked that. I think you even asked me that on WhatsApp directly. Stephanie is a friend of mine. So she asked me a question about the financial thing within a relationship where one guy, the guy is irresponsible and the lady is not. So how do you deal with that from a relationship perspective? I think we kind of, in a way, touched on that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that before we move to the next question.
You know, I think you know, relationships with money are very personal. You know, they're extremely personal, and so you have to sort of start to understand what is this person's relationship with money and how has it been throughout their life. You know, because there are certain people who, for example, money to them is a source of power and respect. So always trying to show that I have got money and I can spend it sort of earns me respect with my peers. So that person will go to all sorts of lengths to ensure that they always look like they have money, even if they don't. So the first call on the money that they have will be, let me go buy drinks for guys. Let me go and buy some, you know, let me go and buy flashy clothes and, you know, I look like I'm doing well. That's what's important to them. So that's what informs their relationship with money. So unless and until you're able to dig deeper and find out what is it that drives this person to spend money this way, it could be their fueling a certain habit, like alcohol, you know, like alcohol or something, and that is being driven by something deeper, you know, and they're using alcohol as a crutch to escape from dealing with something, and hence that's where the bulk of their money is going, you know. And so so you need to be able to dig deeper into that and see where is this, what is contributing to this irresponsibility. There must be something. But that said, then you can also begin to say, once you've identified what that is, you can reach out for help. There are very many financial coaches who are online, and, you know, very many financial coaching classes, even for couples, where you can say, okay, fine, so we've identified that this is a problem, and how do we now deal with that and ensure that we're dealing with money in a way that you know, that doesn't just bleed us completely. But again, in the Raka model, that comes now to accountability and responsibility. You know, I have to be ready to be accountable for how I spent my money, especially if it's money which was supposed to be going to pay for something for the household. You know, I can't just wake up and take my son's school fees and go to Mombasa. You know, I have to be responsible and I have to be accountable. You know, that you're supposed to have done 1, 2, 3. Why haven't you done it?
What happened? Yes.
Yeah, what happened? You know, and then go behind that and see, do we have a problem here? And then how do we fix this? Yeah.
Okay, dude, man, this happens to me every single time. We're flat out of time. It's already been an hour. I try to keep to 1 hour as much as I can. You know, I don't know if we'll have an opportunity to have another conversation with you if you're happy to be on stage again another day.
Always, Mongera, always. Call on me. I'm there anytime.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. I really appreciate your support. I want to give you a few minutes to just plug, you know, a lot of the many things you're doing. I know you're into a lot of stuff, and you're really pushing this social agenda in a very strong, very powerful way. You have an amazing platform of your own on social media and also on radio as well. So here you go, man. Plug. What are you up to? How can guys reach you?
Okay, great. I'm at Mike Wachira on Twitter, and I'm at Real Mike Wachira on Instagram. So you can follow me there. You know, I've tried to create a platform where we can have very honest and sometimes very uncomfortable conversations about us as Kenyans. And I also host a show with Valentine Joroge every Friday on K24 at 9 p.m. called The Loop. Mongera has been on the show quite a couple of times. So we've benefited from his wisdom there. Thank you so much for that. And so if you have time this Friday, 9 p.m. K24, we're talking about the issue of why men and women are so mad at each other in this day and age, specifically off the back of the things that have happened in the recent few days that have passed by. So we want to interrogate why is it that men and women are just so angry at each other, and we don't have, we haven't found space to just talk and ask ourselves, what are these things that we do to one another that is contributing to the situation that we have now? So that's the conversation this Friday, K24, 9 p.m.
Awesome. Awesome. Good stuff, man. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming. I know we've learned a lot about the gender dynamics. We kind of went on a tangent into parenting and stuff, but that's what happens when two dads get to sit down to talk. We kind of talk about our parenting journeys and our kids and all. But I hope that, you know, the audience has had a feel of some of the things that, you know, men have to talk through or think about when it comes to raising their kids. I'm hoping that we're learning a few lessons about what we can do to teach our kids to be more, can I say, humane in how they treat one another. So I think what's lacking is humanity, you know, utu. We don't have that sense of humanity. You don't see the other person as a human being who's deserving of your care, love, support, you know, attention. And that's what's fueling a lot of this violence that we're seeing around us. So I'm hoping that we've all had a sense of that. And if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm M. Mutiga on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. The platform is Papa Bear Kenya. So we are Papa Bear Kenya on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and also on YouTube. So this video is going to be on YouTube shortly in the course of the day tomorrow. So yeah, let's have this conversation. Let's keep this going. For the parents out there, do something to raise your kids in the right way. Let's not be the generation that saw this happen and let it slide. Let's be the generation that saw it and did something to stop it so the next generation doesn't have to. Let's break this cycle. This hate, this vitriol that we're seeing online, it doesn't have to be that way. This is not normal. We need to change things and how things are done. And it's up to us as parents to make that happen. It's up to us as dads to make that happen. So dads out there, you are there. You're good enough. You're strong enough. It's up to you. Make this happen. And, you know, we're here for you. We're here to support in any way that we can. So thanks, guys. Have a lovely evening. And have a happy Easter as well. We're rolling up on the Easter weekend. So have a happy Easter. And, you know, God bless. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening yourself.
Okay.